Thank you everyone for inviting me to speak here today. You've heard about AquaBounty because lots of people have been talking about it at this meeting. And so AquaBounty's AquAdvantage salmon, this is our regulatory journey. And before I get started, I have to, because we are a publicly traded company, have a safe harbor statement. For those that were talking about retirement plans, if you decide that this is your retirement plan and it doesn't work out, well, you can't hold us responsible, basically. So who is AquaBounty now? We are still headquartered in Maynard, Massachusetts. We actually now have 95 employees, and we have RAS farms at Albany, Indiana, and in Prince Edward Island in Canada. Obviously, we're committed to feeding the world with land-based salmon farmed efficiently, sustainably, and profitably. We're not too profitably yet, but we're getting there. We blaze the trail for a genetically engineered animal protein, and we're leveraging over our 25 years of experience. And I have actually been with the company for over 25 years. So I guess maybe that's part of the reason you asked me to come here today. So the original discovery. This is our transgene. It is a GMO. We took GNA from Chinook salmon. It was microinjected back in 1989 into fertilized salmon eggs. We had a transgenic founder we called EO1, and from there we bred now what we consider a successful line of Atlantic salmon that can grow faster. The original founders, Garth Fletcher and Choi Hugh, they were invited. This was from 1995. And they weren't just talking actually about growth hormone salmon at this point in time. They were actually had a couple other thoughts in process, but in today's world that it wouldn't have worked even if the invention worked. So what was our regulatory process? And this is the biggest piece of it. All countries want to know, is it safe and what are the risks? And so for us, the first thing we had to do was when we made this salmon, what was the construct? But more importantly, what was the construct when it was actually in the fish itself? Because what went in and how it rearranged was not the same. Then the next question is, can it be maintained over multiple generations? And I think we've, from the previous slide, you can see it's 2022. This was done back in 1989, and we've been successful. The next question, and you heard Laura talk about this a little bit from the FDA, is it safe for the animal? And we presented this data both first to FDA and then actually to Health Canada, Environment Canada. But what they did say was that, yes, this construct didn't have any additional negative effects on the animal itself. It's a salmon. Truthfully, it tastes great. Is it safe for people and animals? One of the things, if you're actually doing a regulatory process in Canada, is that you don't just apply to have it as an animal for human food consumption. You also have to consider that it could end up in the animal feed stream. And so you reply to both Health Canada and CFIA on that front. So we're looking at composition. Was the composition essentially the same? What was the allergenic potential of that animal? Did it produce any additional allergenic effects? At the end of the day, it's a salmon. If you're allergic to salmon in the conventional way, you're going to be allergic probably to AquAdvantage salmon. But does it cause any additional response? The answer is no. Is it safe for the environment? You heard Eric talk about risk assessment. And again, this is about whether or not our facilities and our fish, what will the impacts be? The reason we can do what we do is because we have extremely good containment. We have multiple layers in our facilities. So it's all about likelihood. It's not just about whether or not there's if it was exposed, what would be the impact, but what's the likelihood of that? And when we were evaluated, the likelihood is what made everything of a low risk, because those fish aren't getting out of our facilities. Obviously, this was the one piece of information that even the activists couldn't argue against at the VMAC meeting that Allison was at. When the efficacy data, whether or not our claims were substantiated, were presented, everybody was like, well, that's a no-brainer. And so I have a little graph further on that's, but yeah, it was pretty much, that was one of the things that you have to prove. Does it presume for you guys? I've heard a lot of talk about disease resistance and so does it really do what you claim it's going to do? So, so this is our long and winding road. And I'm not going to stay here very long because everybody knows we started in 1989. Highlights, 2015, woohoo, finally, FDA approves us. But guys, in all honesty, everybody was trying to figure out how to do this, right? So nobody really knew what we were considering. When I first joined the company, I was told we were going to have an approval in 2 years and it was going to be for everything. Well, that wasn't quite the case. So 2015, 2016, yahoo again, because 6 months later to the day, Health Canada agrees that, yes, it's a safe product. And then third, yoo-hoo, Brazil, great to be here. They also approved us for consumption. So, you know, if you think about the first part, it's really long. But then as we get to 2015, we're getting that acceptance. And so things are moving and it's not such a long time frame in between. There we go. I forgot I did this. So keys to regulatory success. This is what I would say to everybody now, because this is hindsight looking back. Define your product. When you go to the regulators, know exactly what you're asking them to approve. That is key. Because if you don't clearly define it, how are they going to be able to stand behind their decisions? Talk to them. Pre-submission consultations are key. We had multiple meetings with regulatory groups in Canada, in the US. I know our consultants in Brazil had many, many meetings. Oh, yeah. All right. Continue your communication. And anybody who knows me, I'm the Director of Quality and Regulatory Compliance. So if you don't have good data, you really got to make sure it's well documented. This is our product. We are triploid. We are all female Atlantic salmon. We have one copy of our transgene, and we know that our claim is that we can grow to 100 grams faster than our comparators within 2,700 grade days, which is important for fish farmers. And there's my little graph that I talked about. And then finally, thank you, Mark Walton and the AquaBounty team.